Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and we're going to go through the overnight GFS run, which is not completely in, but I'm going to take you through what I have. And I just want to emphasize the fact that this is why you have to be really careful with models and their long-term signals of one thing happening or another, because ultimately they always wind up evolving into something just a little bit different than what you anticipate. And it leads to a lot of frustration. I can see it in some of the comments that are on my Facebook page, and I understand that. And I think you need to view weather as a continuously fluid situation. Just because the pattern changes doesn't change into something that you might necessarily like. Now, we're going to take you through into Saturday, and I just wanted to point out a couple of things here. First off, we don't even have any kind of lead low that was shown for days. Now that's just about gone. There's some light precip that breaks out, some freezing precip in the Hudson Valley, and you can see it there. It really doesn't amount to too much. Now look where this low, which models were forecasting to be out here somewhere, okay, winds up being close to Chicago. I mean, could you possibly be any further left than what has been than what's turning out? And this is what happens sometimes. You just can't always go just because the long range throws out a signal and just because it looks good. And you can have all the indexes you want, all those things that tell you that it's favorable for an East Coast storm. Well, you know what? You got to have everything else in the right place. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Now, this will probably mean that we might briefly get into the 50s on Sunday ahead of this cold front. And you can see there's some heavy showers that go by. There is very cold air behind it. I don't think it'll be quite as cold or as the last shot, because the core of that cold air kind of goes by to the north, but it gets pretty cold nonetheless. And then we have this clipper system that comes into Minnesota, and you can see that the model kind of takes that across the top, brings an Arctic front through here along about the middle of next week. And then that goes out, and another cold air mass comes in, and it turns very cold again. And that high goes out underneath us. And toward the end of the period, there really isn't too much. I'm going to widen out just to get a better view. Maybe we can pick up on something that's going on somewhere else. We'll go the full U.S. view here just to take a look. And you can see systems are pretty weak. There's nothing really of consequence. You got a weak low down in the Gulf somewhere, but that doesn't seem to amount to much. Now, we're going to switch off to the upper pattern, because I think that's probably going to give us some idea of what's going on aloft. And we'll go to the big view, because I like to see all of North America. We only have out to day 7 on this. And I'm just going to let my dog in, because he always seems to know when I'm recording videos. Anyway, you never know what goes on around here. Okay, so you can see you got the vortex in Hudson's Bay. It's not very strong. Rotates around, kind of captures this disturbance here, takes it way to the left, and then it rotates around, and there's the cold air. Now you can see the block that's developing across the top here over Greenland and then continuing into the Arctic, and it forces that upper low to come up, and then you have this other arm that comes around. So this is what the block does. It kind of holds the vortex in place, brings another arm. Now, the way you could wind up with something out of this is if somehow this system were to, instead of just swinging across and moving up near the border, if it were to dig sharply, and that would cause a problem. You do have a big ridge in the west, and that's favorable. You still have this subtropical jet sending systems in, but you got to get one of these to be a little bit of a powerhouse to come across in order for something to happen. So at this stage of the game, I'm pretty unimpressed with all of this. You go to the European real quick from this afternoon, which we can take out all the way through. It probably shows things a little bit better as it loads. And it's taking its time loading. There we go. And you can see the same idea here. European, well, doesn't want to load. Let's try it this way. All right, so there you have, this is now by Sunday. You can see how far west everything is. This is not it's not what you want to see. If you need this to be further east, so you can have all these things happening, but if you don't have the trough close to the east coast, you're not going to get much out of it. Now, you see how that vortex kind of rotates, and then it pulls out, and then you have another one that's coming down. You've got this you have this pretty strong cross-polar flow that's shown on the European here on day 10 later next week. So this would indicate that we would still at least get very cold. It does show a powerhouse coming into the southwest, so we'll probably have to watch that as it moves along. But right now, you know, everything's still in flux. Things are just kind of changing so quickly in so many places that we just have to wait for all of this to settle down. For snow lovers, all I can say is just be patient. One of these is bound to cause something to happen. Just not quite sure exactly when. So enjoy the rest of your day. We're going back up close to 40 and probably into the low 40s the next 2 days, and before we see whatever we wind up seeing over the weekend.